Hi everyone, delonewolf here. Welcome back to some EVE Online, and in today's video I want to discuss the latest devblog on the engineering complexes. So I've been waiting for this devblog for a long time, since it's my next goal in EVE Online to get some manufacturing and research facilities up and running in the digital system close to my citadel. So this devlog is more than welcome. Last week we had the changes for the Orca and the Rorqual, and so everything is now in full swing for the November release. On top of that, this is coming together with the release date for the next expansion, which is going to be November 8th. I was expecting November 22nd, so it's 2 weeks before my personal expectation. Awesome news for me. And on top of that, it's less than a month away. So if you want to find the links here, you can go to the updates website for EVE Online. Then down here, you can find expansion on November 8th. And that's when we'll get EVE Online Ascension, which will bring the alpha clones, the industrial arrays, all the mining changes, the boost changes. I mean, it's definitely going to be a pretty big patch, or an awesome expansion, I think, for EVE Online. Down here we find upcoming engineering complexes and details in the dev blog, which is linked here. Building dreams, introducing the engineering complexes. So these are the next set of Upwell consortium structures that will be released. They will of course focus on manufacturing and on research. And on the first part here, I'm not going to go through the entire dev blog verbatim, because as you can see, it's pretty sizable with a lot of numbers, but there are some topics that I think are pretty interesting. And first of all, the service modules and rigs. For the service modules, I was a little bit surprised, to be honest, because down here is the list, and that's all there is. So we have stand-up manufacturing, plant 1, which allows manufacturing of items and ship. This does not include capital and super capitals. Then we have a capital shipyard, a super capital shipyard, and then we have a research lab and an invention lab. That's all. That's a little bit of a surprise to me. I was expecting much more diversification in the service modules, especially considering that the Citadel still has 3 service slots available. I thought that we would see the same different service modules as we currently have structures for a POS, which is small ships, medium ships, large ships, rigs, ammunition, drones, and all the different modules, which is just called equipment, I think, equipment assembly array. So I thought that they would keep the same differences for the service modules, but no, they're basically making this manufacturing plant 1, which allows you to make all items, probably munitions and drones as well, and then all sub-capital ships, which is pretty crazy, because I was thinking that you'll need different service modules. This comes as a complete surprise to me. So what is going to help people diversify their engineering complexes? It's of course going to be the rigs, and this is definitely a different system than what we're used to in the citadels. So the rigs will have sort of a size scaling, which the example that they're giving is from the smallest engineering complex compared to the largest one, but you can imagine an in-between state for the large engineering complex as well. For instance, for a medium set basic small ship manufacturing material efficiency rig is something that exists specifically for the smallest engineering complex. So there we will probably have rigs for small ships, medium ships, large ships, equipment, munitions, drones, and all of that good stuff. When it comes to an Excel though, you can just grab a ship manufacturing efficiency rig, an Excel ship manufacturing efficiency rig, which is going to give you that bonus for any ship type that you're making. And so the larger you go in your engineering complex, the fewer rigs you will need to be able to provide the bonuses for all types of different jobs. Very interesting. I actually sort of like this idea. Again, not what I was expecting, but this basically means that if you don't want to spend a lot on different fuels for more engineering complexes and on several sets of rigs, you'll want to go for at least like a large engineering complex, which has quite a few drawbacks as well, because it actually needs to be vulnerable quite a little bit longer than the medium one. So It's interesting. It's no longer going to be all different service modules or all different boss structures in order to complete different types of things. Almost, I would say 90% will be built from the manufacturing plant, but if you want to give bonuses to almost everything, you'll either need a lot of the smallest engineering complexes or you'll need larger engineering complexes because of how the rig scaling is going to work. So that means that you will have 64 M-set engineering rigs for the smallest engineering complex, then you'll have 32 for the large and 8 for the Excel. So basically an Excel will be able to provide boosts to an incredible amount of jobs for just a couple of rigs. Next up, engineering rig security status scaling. So all of these will also get special bonuses depending on the type of space that they are anchored in. High-sec gets a standard bonus of 2.4%, low-sec 3.6%, and then null-sec, which will also be wormhole space, I presume, is going to be 4%. This is, of course, to incentivize people to go in more risky space, risk versus reward. If you want the best yields, the best material efficiency on your jobs, if you want the fastest research, you'll want to go to null-sec or to wormhole space and risk things there. So that only makes sense in my opinion, and so these are extra bonuses for Tech 1 rigs are at these percentages, and then for Tech 2 rigs you get even bigger bonuses. So only normal. If you want to check out all the different numbers, of course go straight to the dev blog themselves. Next up, there are some, this is actually decently interesting as well. Here we have the engineering complexes basically compared to the current citadels, and as you can see here are key similarities. It's quite a lot. Both engineering complexes and citadels are built and deployed in the same way, with the same restrictions of how close they can be, same anchoring period, use the same vulnerability, reinforcement and damage cap system for defense. So it's basically a citadel in those respects. The same asset safety system and recovery contents when destroyed or unanchored. This is a little bit surprising, but there is also a little bit of a twist to this one. So keep in mind that the engineering complexes will have the same asset safety as the citadels when it comes to stuff in your inventory, but apparently all the materials and all the output in running jobs, so those are jobs that have not been delivered, are still at risk. Except for your blueprints. Those will always go back to the asset safety system. So they'll basically give you a chance for something to drop if you can then destroy an engineering complex that's building a super capital that you know of. That could become quite interesting risk-wise as the potential drop. But other than that, other than the running jobs and the jobs that are finished but not delivered, the asset safety system is the exact same as the normal citadels, which is actually a pretty big deal. I thought maybe they'd go with more risk, but apparently not. The same access list for managing, we were expecting that, of course. Let's see. Most modules that you can use in the engineering complex you'll also be able to use in a citadel and vice versa, except maybe for a few exceptions. Both engineering complexes and citadels are dockable and include tethering, so that's the exact same mechanic once again, except for a restriction there once as well. As we continue to add new core, this is interesting also and a bit unexpected. I think it could actually be important. As we continue to add new core functionality to structures over time, such as the planned ones are insurance and dock repair facilities, these functions will generally be added to all upwell structures. So if you want to take insurance, you'll no longer have to go into a station. If you want to repair from dock, so a right-click repair all option should also come to both citadels and the engineering complexes, which I didn't see coming, but it's definitely a nice addition to those structures. Now, some of the major differences are, of course, cost. This is pretty important. A small or medium engineering complex, so the smallest one, is going to cost around 40% less than a medium citadel. I've read a little bit down here that it's aimed at 700 million at current cost. A large 60% less than a large citadel, and an Excel 90% less than the Excel citadel. And basically, Oh, the other difference, of course, the amount of HP. So you'll have 33% fewer HP, and you will require more vulnerability hours every week. 9 hours for a small or medium engineering complex, 18 for a large. This is already pretty sizable. 2 to 3 hours a day every single day is definitely something to keep in mind. And then 36 hours for a large and for an Excel engineering complex. But here, of course, why do they reduce the cost so much? It is because there is a difference in what can actually dock into these engineering complexes. And basically the restriction is that no super capital can dock back into an Excel engineering complex. So you can make a super capital in an Excel engineering complex, but once you undock from that, you cannot redock your super capital there. The other ones here, the medium, can dock super capitals and freighters. So in the medium engineering complex, you won't see carriers, carriers, or dreadnoughts or anything like that. Those will be in the large and in the extra large engineering complexes. So some more restrictions, but not allowing super capitals to dock there, of course, makes sense if you're gonna make them that much cheaper than creating an Excel citadel. After this, we have a look at the different engineering complexes. So we've got the medium engineering complex, or Raitaru, probably the coolest name. This should be around the same size as in a Strauss Citadel, so definitely still pretty sizable structure even for the smallest one. Then next up we've got the Asbel class large engineering complex, and then finally we have the Sotio class extra large. Can't wait to see this on CC. It must be absolutely massive. So for me, of course, the importance is going to be, do I go for 2-3 Raitarus in order to provide services in detail, or do I go for maybe a large and a medium or something like that? It's definitely a choice that I'll have to make. We'll see. Just reading through the dev blog, I have no idea what the best option is going to be for me personally. But one thing that's pretty important here is that for me, for a Care Bear, one of the most important aspects is not so much production time, but the material costs. I think that's very important because those are, of course, actual costs for any jobs that anyone else would want to put into my engineering complex. And from that perspective, these role bonuses are very, very interesting because you have 25% bonus to structure engineering rig effects, 5% reduction in manufacturing and science required time, not material efficiency, and then a 25% reduction in fuel consumption. But if you go down here for the large one, it's 10% reduction in manufacturing and science required time, the exact same bonus, which means that you do not get an inherent material efficiency bonus for breaking out a large engineering complex compared to a medium one, which to me is very important. It's a pretty big factor in whether or not I want to make 2 or 3 medium ones, or if I want to go for a large one. So that's pretty interesting. And then the Sotoyo is 15% reduction in required time, which again is pretty sizable. It is important, especially to big alliances that have thousands of jobs running, where time and filling up all your time is what it's actually about, because it becomes more about scale than about the cost of the materials. But for me, for a small player like myself, material efficiency is actually still pretty important. So yeah, this is a choice that we'll have to make. Do you want to go for a medium, which isn't going to cost too much? 700 million ISK is what I read in the dev blog. It's the same as maybe a small boss that can manufacture a decent amount of subcap related stuff. So I think the costs look to be quite okay. A large is actually doable for players. I think I read 5.2 billion was the aim there. Expensive, yeah, here 5.2 billion, expensive, but even for a small corporation, this should be doable. Do you want to risk it? That's a different question, of course. You also get all the required materials in the dev blog, of course. And then the aim is 30 billion for an Excel, which of course is needed for super capital constructions. So it's going to be interesting to see if these guys in nullsec are going to become drivers of conflict. I think they could be. And then asset safety here, I think that they basically explain that manufacturing and science jobs in progress, any BPOs involved will be sent to the asset safety. The other materials that were part of the job, including BPCs, as well as any completed and undelivered job outputs, will have a chance to drop in the structure rec, just like structure modules. So that's the one difference. This doesn't feel like it's that big of a risk, honestly. Your BPOs will always be safe, which is pretty important, of course, because if not, then people would just only create blueprint copies. They would do all the research in a citadel, and then research would never be done inside these complex engineering complexes. Final part, let's take a look. This is basically, this is actually decently important. This is CCP's future vision of going from bosses and outposts to the new upwell structure line. And the part that's really important is right here. Our current plans is that as of our December release, the first release after the expansion, it will no longer be possible to deploy new outposts or outpost upgrades. That's pretty important for any nullsec alliance to understand that, CCP is definitely, while not phasing anything out just yet, they are getting primed to stop the increase of first year outposts. Expect bosses to not last too long after that, and then of course it's going to be all about the buyback and the phase out part of the old structures. So it's going to be pretty interesting, and this is actually pretty important milestone to keep in mind if you're in a major nullsec alliance. Of course, after that we've got all the spreadsheets for material costs, all the actual bonuses. These are the rigs. That's quite a lot of them. Even if you click on them on a 1080p screen, it's not readable. You have to actually start zooming out. And overall, more sand in the sandbox. The Ascension expansion coming November 8th. To me, it's looking pretty cool. It's also 2 weeks earlier than I expected, so I may have to rush some of my plans and preparations, but it's awesome to finally have this dev blog. Now I can start number crushing, fuel usage, rig costs, number of rigs that I want. Do I go for a large? Do I go for several mediums? It's all up in the air. I can't wait to see this stuff on CC as well. But we have the information now. You can definitely start to finalize your plans. And when it comes to building of an M, I mean, just one of any of these, that doesn't cost all that much. So I'll definitely be able to provide services in detail. The question is, how well bonused will I be able to make them? That is going to be, of course, all part of the journey. But there you go, guys. All the information on the engineering complexes available in the dev blog. Make sure to check it out and give CCP all your feedback. It's actually pretty important that we get this as right as possible. As always, thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you all next time.